Welcome ladies and gents, Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about two terrific women's fights that were brilliant adverts for the sport. One of them was Claressa Shields beating Savannah Marshall on points, and the other one was Alycia Baumgardner beating Mikaela MAYER on points. So let's talk about these particular fights. I didn't have time to bring a technical breakdown video, a preview, a prediction. I had all the footage collected and stuff like that. I have done one, of course, for Haney and Kambosos too, but I just didn't have the time to do these ones. So I shared some thoughts on Twitter pre-fight, and that was that a lot of people were portraying this as the boxer versus the puncher, but for me that was too simplistic, because Savannah Marshall does some things that are technically brilliant. Her upper body movement is superb. She rolls with punches very well. It's very hard to catch her flush. By the same token, the hand speed of Claressa Shields and her work rate is superb. Brilliant athletic gifts. But she makes some errors with the way she enters the pocket sometimes. If she wants to enter quickly, she'll literally run in on you. And she can square up as she's doing that when she's there and she's letting go of flurries to trade, which can leave her head on the centre line. So she is in a position where she could potentially get countered with big shots. The problem is Savannah Marshall has very slow hands. And when you've got very slow hands, you have to have the right shot selection. It is vital. It is so hard to be a slow-handed fighter and to fight somebody who's athletically superior and to be successful consistently. This is why Joe Joyce is such a clever fighter. And we'll talk about some of these things in a moment. But ultimately, it's about maximizing the probability of the shots that you land. Your shot selection should be determined by what maximizes your chances of actually landing, rather than you looking to land a big shot in the hope of taking someone out. So what was happening is that when Marshall was looking to load up with big shots from range, Claressa was far too sharp early on. She was rolling, turning away from shots, pull countering and things like that, and it was causing her real problems. And because she was going back onto the ropes to do it, she didn't even have that problem of having to run in. You know, her footwork issue wasn't really there. She was basically moving back onto the ropes, inviting Savannah Marshall in and then countering her from the ropes. And what Savannah was doing early on, which was a problem for me, although she showed that brilliant upper body movement that we spoke about, she wasn't punishing Claressa Shields from that. So she'd cover up, tuck up, start rolling, trying to absorb or take away the power early on, trying to absorb that pressure without taking damage early on. And you could hear in the corner, they were telling Savannah she's not going to be able to maintain this tempo. But the problem is, you need, yes, that's true, perhaps, but you also need to be trying to punish her a little bit in those moments. In other words, if she's throwing a flurry of 10 shots and she's only landing 3, yeah, that's good. You dodged 7 punches for argument's sake. Or you rolled with 7 punches. They didn't land flush. But you've then got to come back with something to make her think twice about wanting to throw those flurries of shots. Instead, she wasn't really doing that. She was a little bit too passive early on. And I had her 4-0 down after 4 rounds, Savannah Marshall. And I wanted to see her as she's rolling down to come upstairs, freeze her up to the body and then rise up. So when you're low, when you've slipped a shot and you've come low, or you've rolled with a shot and you've come low, instead of trying to launch your way back up with a big hook to the head, because the distance you've got to carry to bring that hand from low all the way up when you're slow-handed, it's not on your side against someone who's got fast reactions. So from that position, shoot an uppercut through the center line so that if you're going to miss the chin, if she's slightly bent, you're going to miss the chin, you're going to land towards the body. If she's not bent away, land a hook to the body. Fight low, freeze her up low, and from there come up. Just like Joe Joyce. How often do you see Joe Joyce early in fights throw big wide hooks? He can't do it. The opponent will see it coming and evade them. So he gets behind the jab, that very effective thudding jab to the chest, and then he's got the other slower power shots that will follow behind it, but they're short. They're shortened in the arc. They're not these wide hooks. They're straight punches. And that's what she needed to do. If he's going to go wide with these shots, he targets the body. And so for me, Savannah needs to look at someone like Joe Joyce in terms of shot selection. From the 5th round, she started to do much better. She was more economical with her movement. Peter Fury did say, don't bounce around so much. You know, start holding your feet a little bit more. She should have started to do that a little bit earlier, to be honest with you. And she started to land some big shots, and I had her edge in that round. The 6th round was a big round for Savannah. And she started to chop away at Claressa and was rolling very well with shots. Then in the 7th round, she won it again. She was applying incessant pressure and she was targeting the body very well. So now she's made that adjustment. And you're starting to look at this and you're thinking, she's getting low, she's rising with shots. You know, she's starting to, Shields is showing some real dog in her, showing some real warrior in her, but she's slowing. Is Savannah turning the tide? And just as you think that, Shields goes and wins the 8th round. And Savannah sort of stepped off at that point. She allowed that tempo to fall off and tried to box with Shields. at range and you saw that difference in hand speed again, that was an error for me. Savannah at that point had to start fighting like a big woman. She had to stay up close, lean on her. It was clear that Shields was tiring a little bit. Target the body, make her carry your weight. Don't let that momentum get away. But she did, and she lost that round, and it was great work from Claressa Shields because she showed that dog in her and she was willing to let go of these fast flurries of shots. The 9th round was a good round for Savannah. Again, she found a home to the body and to the head. And again, it looked like Shields was tiring. She started to eat some big shots. And so for me, I had them 1 round apart going into that final round. And we'll get to this in a moment because I know a lot of people I've seen wildly different scorecards on my timeline. And I'm going to explain why with fights like these. In my opinion, you get these wide scorecards, or rather widely divergent scorecards. But in the last round, Savannah won the first half of the round, and then Claressa won the second half of the round. I edged it to Claressa Shields. I felt that it was a 6-4 win for Claressa Shields, but I wouldn't have had the problem with a draw. Now, I've had people say to me, what are you talking about, Chris? I had it 8-2 to Claressa Shields. Lou DeBella thinks that Claressa Shields won every single round. And then I had other people tell me, no, that was Savannah for me. Savannah got to her late on. It was a fight of 2 halves, but Claressa didn't really do much after the 4th round. They didn't feel like she won any rounds after the 4th. So why is there this divergent view? You see, what happens in boxing, when you have somebody that rolls a lot of shots, you'll see a shot that will land on the face, but it's not really landed. As it makes a connection, when you turn with it, it can look as though that shot has caused that person's head to snap back. In reality, that shot, he's rolled with it and taken the power off that shot. So it's not really a scoring shot. And you have to have a laser sharp eye to spot these sorts of things. And a lot of the times people don't notice it. The other reason, the most obvious method of seeing a shot coming is a long straight shot, or where there's exaggerated movements behind it. So like a pull counter, for instance, it's so obvious you're seeing the guy pull back, counter with a straight right hand and snap the head back of the opponent. Whereas a shorter hook, when you're up close against each other and you've landed a shorter hook, it doesn't have that same sort of snapping impact in terms of visually speaking. Same with shots to the body. This is why body work often goes under the radar. When Anthony Yarde fought Lyndon Arthur in the first fight, I made a video where I was saying a lot of people, this was a very close fight. It wasn't a robbery that people were saying, because a lot of the work that Anthony Yarde was doing to the body was going under the radar. But the jab that would snap the head back of Anthony Yarde, people will instantly notice. And this is also potentially the reason that Canelo Alvarez divides opinion so much, because his shots are big exaggerated movements. You notice the obvious counters and the big shots that snap a guy's head back, whereas when he's getting hit with shorter stuff, a lot of people might not pick up on that. And so you're having a lot of people that will say to you, actually Savannah rolled with a lot of the shots that you're giving her credit, that you're giving Shields credit for, and you'll have other people that say no, she was getting outworked, they were still landing. And there's room for subjectivity in that regard, because at what point does a shot connecting count as an effective shot? Has it really connected if it's just a glove, or if somebody rolls with it and turns their head and there isn't really impact on their head or face, and it's more like a sort of clipping or grazing sort of shot, or a shot that just doesn't carry through the opponent because they moved with it? Do you see what I'm saying? So it leaves an area of subjectivity. Some people will say, yeah, it counts. Other people will say, no, there's not much on that. It's not enough to win an exchange. You know, Tim Witherspoon in the past, he made this move quite famous, rubbernecking as he used to call it. When you throw a shot, he would snap his head with your punch and take it off it. Something Granados did to Conor Benn as well, by the way. And he lost to Larry Holmes via split decision. And to this day, he's adamant the reason people got confused with that fight and a few other fights in his career is because they would assume that shots were landed that were not landing. He would roll with a shot and the movement would appear as though it was landing flush. And that's one of the things that I think can sometimes be the case with a fighter like Savannah Marshall. Claressa Shields, though, did exceptionally well. Like I said, great hand speed, great shot selection. She showed a lot of dog in her even when she was tired. She showed as well that she's adaptable. She doesn't have to be on the front foot. She can get on the back foot. And the best boxers are versatile. They are adaptable. So fantastic performance from both women. Congratulations to Claressa Shields. They're talking about making the fight potentially happen again in the United States. I think Shields has got some obligations first in terms of mixed martial arts, and then we'll come back to boxing. That would be a fight that could really build up again in the US, because Claressa Shields did say post-fight that was the hardest fight of my career. And so when you've got that sort of build-up, it's the sort of thing, again, that can help transcend women's boxing when you've got that rematch, because people will be tuning in. And in the other fight, MAYER versus Baumgardner, I actually thought that Baumgardner won the fight legitimately. The correct woman got the decision. And again, this is sort of me semi going against the grain in some respect, and I'm not meaning to. It's just that most people seem to be saying online that they felt it was a robbery. The commentary team felt that Mikaela Mayer won the fight. I do think that commentary teams do influence a lot of people's opinions on this, and it goes also back to what we were saying before about the type of work that an individual pulls off, how it translates to an audience. In my opinion, they were talking early on about Mikaela Mayer being able to box on the back foot and being in control. I don't think that was happening early on. I thought Alycia was 3-0 up after 3 rounds, to be honest with you. Mayer was trying to jab to the chest, trying to stabilize her, but she wasn't able to do that. And it was quite a lazy, pouring jab. And she was getting countered with these right hands over the top of the jab. And they were consistent flush shots. And she was, getting outboxed at times, really. And they were heavy shots. And what I really wanted to see is Mayer either start to get behind a double jab and really go in and force your way in and start to fight right up close and try to impose your size in the bid to wear her down. Something that Savannah Marshall tried to do but didn't work against Claressa Shields, or to use a lot more feints and stop the timing of Alycia Baumgardner. And there was one point, I think it was in the 4th round, where she did start to do that, and Baumgardner had this right hand cocked and she was threatening to come in Mayer, and she was almost going to throw the right hand and then pulled out of it. So clearly those feints were affecting Baumgardner when they did start to come. She was concerned about when to let that hand go. So when those feints started to come, she started to vary the jab from upstairs to downstairs and change the angle of it. It became harder to read and thus harder to counter. So from 3-0 up, I ended up having them go level at 3-3. And it looked like Mayer started to find the momentum and switched it to her side. But Alycia then won, in my opinion, a close 7th round. She was landing some big shots and she was finding a home for them consistently. And that is what enabled her to have a lot more success, combined with the fact that in the previous 3 rounds, her head movement hadn't been great. She started to get her head off the line a lot more, which made her harder to find with the jab. And so that was a key round for Alycia. It stopped the momentum of Mayer. And I also felt she won the 8th round with some eye-catching flurries, and she was successful in that regard in lowering the tempo of Mikaela Mayer as well, which was key. I felt that Mayer did win the 9th round. I thought that was a good round for her. She kept the activity up. So again, I've gotten 1 round up going into the last round. But I felt that this time in the last round, Alycia was able to really control the tempo, get on the back foot, just time her with a short jab when she was trying to get in with that entry. And as a result of that, she was highly successful with it. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents, about everything we've spoken about in these videos. Do you agree with me that what Tim Witherspoon has spoken about, rubbernecking, rolling with shots whereby a shot will catch you and it's not quite flush, and a lot of people confuse that, or they're more likely to notice these big eye-catching sort of moments rather than the more consistent work, which might be a lot more subtle and harder to spot, or whether you did indeed have both fights very one-sided either way. Did you have Claressa Shields winning in a one-sided way? Did you have Mikaela Mayer winning in the one-sided way? Let me know how you saw the fights. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Take care. God bless.